So today in the PhantomCave YouTube channel, we're going to be talking about the third trade paperback that has recently come out from last year, and we're going to be reviewing it on the channel today. I hope you enjoy these next probably couple of minutes where we get to have a look at the new sequel that comes with the TRIAD saga and the original 5 parts. Now, as I was saying, I hope you enjoy this sort of next couple of months, because we'll be doing a lot of sort of based around a lot of Phantom content on the channel, and let's get into it. The TRIAD saga, it basically, it's a Egmont slash sort of Sweden story. It has an intro by Andreas Eckerson, which I know him on Facebook, and he may be coming for a interview sometime in the future. So yeah, and it has like obviously the table of contents, the new TRIAD saga sort of info. The publisher of this one is Dudley Hogarth. Designer Glenn Ford, cover and story artist is Ramando Fellman, one of my absolute favourite artists. We have scans and colours by Ivan Peterson. As a lot of people know, Ivan Peterson is basically, he's a legendary on the colours. We have Frank Schultz in production manager, Shah Hu in production coordinator, and Reed White and Glenn Ford are the directors for this sort of comic. Now, Andreas Eckerson gives a lowdown on what's the history of the comic, or the comic series, and how it came about. It goes for 1 page, and then each few actually show the last couple of trade paperback specials, and then the graphic novel they did back in, I think, 2019. They also did a hardcover book, which is also a good read. And now we're going to be getting into the comic. So back in 1995, we had the first part of the TRIAD saga come out, and I have a few of the original sort of Phantom comics that came back in that year, and this is one of them. This is obviously the first part, and back in those days it came with a story which is called The Phantom World, and we'll talk about the other couple of parts in future for this video. Obviously the cover artist for that one is the legendary Antonio Lemos, who actually did the 2021 annual that has came out last week. So let's get into the story. I hope you enjoy this story, and like I did, well, in this actual saga, I hadn't even read it. I haven't even read the saga before until this very publication, and it starts off with mysteriously a ship getting probably some pirates getting blamed after the Jungle Patrol actually. And what actually happens in this book is there's 5 parts obviously. It's a very good story. I love it. The colours are magnificent by Ivan Peterson, and this guy has a major role in this sort of comic. The Phantom also has a major role in this comic as well. A lot of the time when we get to see the Phantom in a comic strip, we actually he actually has a lot to do with it. And the front cover for this book is actually quite... It's basically this character right here, or as you can see in that frame, if you can see it on the camera. I'll try and get a good photo of it. Plus, the cover, the book itself is obviously in glossy pages, so you got to be careful about marks and sweat stains and anything of the above. You got to be careful about how you preserve these types of books, and a lot of people, a lot of Phantom fans would know that by now. And yeah, it's I would guess it is quite a good story, as I've said many times, as there is a gun sort of smuggling operation happening in Morrisontown, and then that eventually makes its way to, I think, China, and that's where the Phantom basically stops it. The Phantom then goes on and finds that the Jungle Patrol hasn't had any involvement in this sort of the first part, and then we move into part 2. Now part 2, I have the original copy of the magazine, the comic of it from 1995. There's the original sort of copy from it. A lot of the time when we actually go through the 1995, 1990s, 80s, 70s, 60s and above and beyond of those time brackets, we get to see quite a good art from the Seymour Barry stage, from the Wilson McCoy and the Ray Moore stage, from George Olsen, Keith Cato, the list goes on. And back in those days, we saw a lot of good art, especially Seymour Barry's art. It's amazing, and a lot of people like Seymour Barry's art because of its simplistic, it's realistic in a way, and it presents the Phantom really well, which sometimes Phantom fans don't actually like. The Phantom big and bulky and has lots of muscles and all that sort of stuff. He's got to have muscles, let me just say that. If he didn't have muscles, obviously he wouldn't be able to fight as good as he does. And we are now going to be getting into TRIAD Saga Part 2, which is called The Five Thunderbolts, I think it is. We continue with Colonel Wakes in... Well, this sort of takes Colonel Wakes back to his original sort of time in the Jungle Patrol before he became Colonel. Of the basically big honcho of the Jungle Patrol, I guess. But also because the guy before Wakes, right? He did a lot of good things, I think. I don't know I don't know much about the colonels and who did what and where it all comes down to history and timeline. I know a lot of Phantom fans are got to know that sort of information, but I don't really go on it as like an important statement in the Phantom. Well, it is an important statement in the Phantom culture and the Phantom history, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that it's that important in my books. It is important in other people's books, but obviously not mine. And we move on in where the Phantom, the Diana, and the Wakes, Colonel Wakes, get, I think, trapped or get ambushed into trying, because Colonel Weeks, he is trying to work out where these gun smugglers are trying to come from, and if you can see in this sort of comic, he's actually doing the research to find where the supplies come from, and obviously that's Phantom's job, but Colonel Weeks is also doing his job as a patrolman, and he is actually researching where they would come from, why are they coming from where, and what is their sort of margin and why they should be in the country in the first place, and how they're getting smuggled out of the country. Now, Colonel Weeks, he gets ambushed by a certain TRIAD SAGA, and he then gets brought to the 5 Thunderbolts HQ. And with all that happening, we still have a major task on our hands, with the Jungle Patrol still in the red from them nearly getting blamed for doing what they did in the first part, and that was something bad or something. So then the guy, this, if you can see it on the camera, Colonel Weeks' friend, is girlfriend or wife, whatever you want to call it, actually gets to Colonel Weeks, and he actually delves in what happens. Then eventually they get ambushed, the Phantom comes and rescues them, and Colonel Weeks, the future colonel of the Jungle Patrol, nearly die with the wife or the girlfriend, and the boyfriend of her, I think he dies. Something happens with him. I can't quite remember what actually happens with him. I think the Triads, the organisation that's trying to kill them. Obviously I'm not going to spoil it for the Phantom fans that haven't actually read the TRIAD saga, but this Tiger girl, she's nasty, I tell you that right now. And the Phantom is wanting to know where these gun smuggling types of guns are coming from. He finds that out in the 4th part. He finds that the Tiger Girl is actually is part of it, and this guy actually shows the Phantom where the Tiger Girl's basically island is, and that guy's tribe is actually sworn under secrecy and cannot reveal the location, but he's game enough to actually reveal the location, and we'll see how it turns out. So then the Phantom comes up against a White Tiger. The White Tiger nearly gets him, but doesn't. What else? The Tiger Girl basically captures the Phantom and tries to do a Sala impression on Skyband. What am I forgetting that for? The Tiger Girl tries and does a Sala from the Skyband. That doesn't work out. The Phantom then has to do a competition, obviously wins, and the Tiger Queen or girl actually tries and seduces the Phantom in trying to get him to do to join her clan, and then she actually gets destroyed, her island gets destroyed, and her tiger, will the tiger actually get destroyed? Will the tiger girl actually get destroyed? We'll find that out in the 6th part, the sequel to this book, and we now are up into part 4, which I do have the original story and the original comic to this, and there it is. It's Death in Shanghai, and back in those days it was, you'd pay $1.50 for your comic. Now let's get into the back end of this video and talk about what happens in part 4, part 5 and part 6. So we now move on to China, and the great thing about this sort of part, if you can see it in the video or the camera, the great thing about this sort of video, this sort of comic, is that it actually, some of the times, it contains a lot of historical sort of moments, and how historical sort of people impact the Phantom as well. It contains a lot of sort of how China is a demanding force in the army, demanding force on the sea, and again that also comes down to politics, and how a lot of it is perceived through people's eyes. We have a very high general sort of guy in China. His daughter actually falls in love with a white guy who, back in America in the future, he's a renowned author and journalist. So he then, at the end of this, the daughter gets killed. The boyfriend or future boyfriend actually gets ambushed, and he tries and does the hero sort of thing, and then he meets up with the Phantom, right? And the Phantom sort of helps him try and restore all calm in this town. And what he doesn't do is that eventually we have the guns that is getting smuggled into from Morrisontown to China is actually for an straight out war between two generals, and they're they're two generals, they're going at it, and they're trying to fight over who's who in the city, and the Phantom actually has to stop this at all costs. And his daughter, actually, not the Phantom's daughter, but the general's daughter, actually dies. The general actually kills his own daughter, and then the Phantom eventually has to end this part 4. And he's still puzzled on whether anything will actually happen. And we're now up to the part 5, the climax, as we all know, in the TRIAD saga. And as I try and do something special with this sort of the handling of this book, I have the original sort of comic from 1995 of the climax of the Triads. I hope you can see it, and we will be getting into this next part of part 5 and part 6, And in part 5, the author / journalist gets captured or ambushed. He's held upon his will to survive. He survives, and the Phantom gets him, and eventually the two generals go head to head in an all-out war. The Phantom actually has to try and stop the war. He eventually nearly does so. The journalist survives, and eventually the Phantom and the journalist survive the war, and the two generals, I think, go into custody or are dead. The Phantom does not kill. He's sworn upon duty of not killing. And we now get into part 6, the new sequel to the TRIAD saga. And I'm trying with this video to try and so people can actually see what's happening on the page. It's a bit hard when you've got a big book and it's glossy pages and it's a sort of binding that's not like usual comic book. And the sequel is written by Andrew Constant, which recently he's been doing a lot for like the Phantom, the DC. He's got his new DC sort of Hawkeye, I think it's Hawkeye or something. It's a DC series, and I hope it does great for him. We'll be getting him, we'll be doing something special with him later in February or up to March, and the art is by Romando Felmang, edited by Glenn Ford and coloured by Ivan Peterson. Now this one, of course, I said, is the Tiger Queen still alive? Yes, she is. It's called The Return of the Tiger Queen. The Phantom goes through basically a chronicle, and then a tiger is mysteriously in the path of a tribesman, and she leaves a note. The Phantom then gets on a plane urgently, and we see the Tiger Queen on the same island, still alive. How is that? So she survived that explosion of her island, and she has basically grown a clan full of tigers. And yeah, she tries and gets Phantom she basically wants her revenge on the Phantom, but obviously that doesn't happen. The Phantom puts her in jail, and he nearly dies from it. So the Tiger Queen, obviously, she nearly dies in this 6th and final part, and the Phantom basically takes her to the authorities, and then we get into the original covers. So these are the original front covers of the Phantom's Triads, published by Semic Press in 1994. We have, and also it's got the Crystal Skull, the first submission to Phantoman, which the Crystal Skull we actually had a look at early this year in early January. We have Phantoman number 19 from 1994. We have Phantoman from number 20 from 1994. We have obviously number 21 from obviously the same year, and the next couple are from the same year, and they are called Phantoman 22 and 23. So a lot of times when few they also like to do a little phantom sketch. So at the back we have a sort of promotional sort of thing for eventually there will be an ad of this out, and there already is an ad out. And so I hope you enjoyed this review of the TRIAD saga, and I hope you can like this video. I hope you liked it, and as always, keep Phantom Caving, and we'll see you next week on the Phantom Cave YouTube channel. See yous!